SB 42. SB 42 is an incredibly important bill. And what this bill does is it removes the ban on public financing for general law cities and counties. Currently, we have this dichotomy in California where if you're a charter city and or county, you can provide for some form of public financing. There's no dictated form. There's no mandatory form of public financing. There are many different modalities all around the country, even all around California. But currently, cities and counties are banned if they're general law cities and counties. This simply removes the ban. It allows folks to experiment. Now, this just puts it on the ballot. So to be clear, this is a multi-step process before there is any modality of public financing. So first, it has to get through the legislature. Then second, it has to go on the ballot. And then the voters, by a majority vote, have to approve it. And then, for example, a city that wishes to enact some public financing mechanism either has to take it to the people, or if the city permits it, the city council can effect it. This, to me, it makes sense. Again, there's misinformation as to what may be required. There is nothing required in this bill, absolutely nothing. It simply removes the ban that currently exists today and allows general law cities and counties to enact their own legislation. And with that, I have two witnesses. I have, again, Mr. Trent Lang, thank you very much, from Clean Money, California, and David Shore from California Common Cause. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Wonderful. And you each have 2 minutes.
Great. Thank you again. Good morning again, Madam Chair and members. Trent Lang again, President of the California Clean Money Campaign. We're very proud to sponsor SB 42 along with our co-sponsors, California Common Cause and the League of Women Voters of California, and are very grateful to the leadership of Senator Umberg, Allen, and Cervantes, and Assemblymember Lee for authoring it and for the work of this committee again. It's patently unfair that California jurisdictions other than charter cities aren't allowed the same option to have public financing campaigns that charter cities have. I do want to address concerns that have been raised in some places that governments might arbitrarily be able to arbitrarily prohibit certain candidates from accessing public financing. The bill actually explicitly protects against this by saying public funding statutes, charters, ordinances, and resolutions shall not discriminate based on party or according to whether a candidate is a challenger or an incumbent. So it has that basic protection in there. Concerns have also been raised about pressure on jurisdictions' budgets. Public finance campaigns generally have actually very low price tags. In the charter cities that we've seen, typically it's between 0.02% and 0.07% of the budget is the overall cost for it. A very small price to pay to ensure that voters have less perception of influence by special interests. Whether or not there is influence or not, we want to reduce the a perception of that. And as Senator Umberg pointed out, SB 42 does not actually implement any system at all. It just gives jurisdictions their own control to implement public financing if they want to, if they want to at all, how much they want to provide, what sort of system they want to use, et cetera. And lastly, the measure SB 42 will put on the ballot does provide basic protections by requiring that voluntarily participating candidates must abide by expenditure limits and meet strict criteria to qualify, with some very basic outlines of that. We therefore respectfully request your aye vote to give voters the option to decide. Thank you.
Thank you. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, members of the committee. Thank you for having me. My name is David Shore. Can you all hear me? Yes. And I'm here on behalf of Common Cause and a broad coalition of democracy, community, and grassroots organizations supporting SB 42. Common Cause is proud to co-sponsor SB 42 because we believe in a more inclusive democracy where everyday people, not just the wealthy, have a real voice in elections. Common Cause has long supported this type of reform, and our coalition has too. Our co-sponsor, the League of Women Voters, has been working on making a democracy that works for all of us for over a century, but today that principle is under attack. SB 42 would place a ballot measure on the 2026 ballot to end the state ban on public financing and help build a political system that works for all Californians. It allows California's voters of today to decide how we want the California of tomorrow to look. We urge this committee to support this bill and place the California Fair Elections Act before the voters on the November 2026 ballot. Across California, people feel shut out of the political process. Many believe only the wealthy or those with well-connected donors can compete, discouraging participation in our democracy. Data shows this concern is real. In Oakland, half of campaign contributions come from outside of the city. In San Jose, 81% of local candidate funding comes from donors giving $500 or more, far beyond what most Californians can afford. Small dollar public financing is a proven solution. It broadens the donor base, strengthens representation, and makes it possible for more diverse candidates to run. We are working to establish these programs in charter cities across the state, but this reform must be an option for all California communities. SB 42 will take a vital step forward in making that possible. We thank the committee, bill authors, Senators Umberg and Allen, and our coalition partners. We request an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Any witnesses in the room that just want to come to the mic, state your name, organization, and position?
Good morning, Chair members. Dora Rose, Deputy Director with the League of Women Voters of California, co-sponsor and in strong support. I also have the proxy of ACLU California Action, which is also in strong support. Thank you.
Well, Jeff Tardigia, an advocate, but also Kara, Al, SAC True, healthcare, and a number of other subjects, and recommend support of this.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. Tasia Stevens with Catalyst California in strong support.
Cynthia Shallett with California State Strong with indivisible chapters, over 70 indivisible chapters up and down the state in strong support.
Jackie Wheeler, Dean Democratic Club in strong support.
Sue Carell drove all the way from Santa Rosa with the Oakmont Democratic Alliance, and we're in strong support.
Ruth Levy, who also drove all the way from Santa Rosa and part of the Santa Rosa Democratic Club. So thank you.
I hope you carpooled. Okay.
Sadly, I walked 3 blocks, but Marquise Key Mason, California Environmental Voters, strong support. Thanks so much.
Grateful you're here.
Sean McMorris with California Common Cause, speaking on behalf of Courage California, Hmong Innovating Politics, La Defensa, Starting Over Strong, asking for your support of this bill.
Ruth Holton Hodson, representing California Third Act, in strong support of the bill. Thank you.
Ashley Coates, I live in Moraga, strongly support.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members. Mari Lopez with the California Nurses Association in support.
Yvonne Fernandez, California Labor Fed in support.
Good morning, Johnny Pena with the League of California Cities in support. Thank you.
Good morning, Pamela Brigham with Indivisible Tri-Valley in support.
Hi, Terry Bryan from Santa Rosa, strong support.
Susan Satterholm, San Francisco, California Clean Money Campaign, strong support.
Jacqueline Doerr, public health advocate in strong support of letting the people decide.
Ann West from San Bruno, California, and the California Clean Money Group. Thank you. In strong support.
Carol Osorio from San Francisco, California, representing the 300 members of the WASH Club, and we are in strong support.
Gail Brugler, Palo Alto, strong support.
Ann Harvey with 350 Bay Area Action in strong support.
Mary Gill, Stanford with the San Mateo County DFA, strong support.
Nancy Raby from Belmont, California with San Mateo County Democracy for America Communications Task Force in strong support.
Carol Kinser, Elk Grove, California. I'm representing California chapter of Laudato Si movement. Thank you.
Elizabeth Carpenter from Berkeley in strong support.
Sanjay Muralitharan with the College Democrats of America, which is the largest youth democratic organization in the country with strong support.
Paul Randall, Santa Rosa, California, and the U.S. needs this bill now more than ever.
Tom Whitehead from San Francisco in strong support.
Chris Hamilton from Berkeley. Please pass the bill.
Jenny Madsen. First Wednesdays and Big Tent, San Leandro, a charter city. Very much in support.
Hi, Kent Miller, Sacramento, strong support.
Good morning. Carol Keesley, Sacramento, support Indivisible Sacramento.
Malini Kumar from Fremont, strongly support SB 42.
Don Curry, Menlo Park, strong support.
Shannon Geis, San Francisco, strong support.
Bev Lear, San Francisco, strong support.
Deirdre Booker from San Francisco, and I am in strong support of SB 42.
Very, very strong support. Terry Moravitz, Mill Valley.
Amy Huey, Indivisible Resistors Contra Costa, in strong support.
Ida Egley, instructor, retired, Santa Rosa Junior College, also with the Democratic Alliance of Oakmont, in strong support.
Gus P. Manolis, retired professor at Santa Rosa Junior College, in strong support of this bill.
Gary Appel, Mill Valley, strong support for this bill.
Pat Schwinn, Oakland, Montclair Presbyterian Church Democracy Study Group, strong support.
Carol Badger from San Francisco and California Clean Money, strong support.
Lawrence Abbott, Lathrop, California, strong support.
Carla Kincaid Yoshikawa, San Francisco. This bill addresses one of the underlying causes of many things. It will
Let's
impact
just stick
many
to your
things,
name
so
and
please do it.
organization and position, please. Thank you.
David Schmidt from Santa Rosa, strong support.
Alan Kilgore, resident of Sacramento County, strong support.
Elizabeth Schmidt, a native-born Californian, strong support.
Shalnisa Bayless, nicknamed Sandy, retired federal employee in Santa Rosa, strong support of SB 42.
Hi, Karen Beck, representing the San Ramon Valley Dem Club and the Tri-Valley Dem Club, in strong support. Thank you.
Linda DeMichel from Los Altos, strong support.
Jim Davidson from Los Altos, in support.
Graham Huey from Water Creek, representing the Democratic Valley, Diablo Valley Democratic Club. Thank you. In strong support.
Nancy Neff, representing the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto, which endorsed the bill. Thank you.
Elaine El Bisri, Palo Alto, strong support.
Carol Cross, Redwood City, strong support.
John Fioretta, on behalf of Santa Clara County, move to amend, strong support.
Joe Ely, Marsh Creek Democratic Club, has endorsed, strong support.
Catherine Lewis, San Francisco, strong support.
Craig Dunkerley, Sunnyvale, California, me too.
Jessica Eisenberg from Kensington. I'm a California Clean Money volunteer, in support.
PJ Santos Eisenberg, in strong support. Berkeley, California.
Any other witnesses in the room want to add on as a Me Too in support? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to any primary witnesses in opposition. And you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is David Bolog. Some of the things that were mentioned, but not really mentioned, is about what adds on to this bill. I know it said that it's just to put it on the ballot, but what it does do, it does not allow any loan repayment from matching funds. Now, we all know California is a blue state. We have a supermajority in this legislature. 75% of you are Democrats. I cannot see how this bill is not an attack on the opposition, because many of the candidates that run, I know especially in my district, in the 40th Assembly District and the 27th Assembly District, the campaigns that ran against the incumbents that are still sitting right now, they got their election started with loans to themselves. Now, forgive me for not knowing the election code that well, because I do work a 72-hour job and everything I do up here is voluntarily on my own time. So I don't know if this applies to actually Assembly and Senate races, but it also limits the amount of matching funds to 10, if I'm understanding it right, because it was written in a way to me that was obfuscating. So forgive me if I'm wrong, but it looks like it only allows matching funds up to $10. So each person has to give $10. And it may also allow the locality to say, well, if you gave $100, we'll give you $10 towards matching funds. There is so much political power in this room, in this state. The backers of this bill are big powerhouses, the AFL-CIO, the nurses union, all these witnesses that are Democrats from different Democratic clubs. It looks like democratically funded. Yeah, I can't see this as an attack of that. And also, another thing that it does, it increases the fine if there's money that was given that was not allowed. It's $1 to $1, up to 3 times. So with that, I said my piece. I would ask for a no vote, but I only know 2 of you are going to vote no. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to add on as a Me Too in opposition to this bill? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the committee. Assemblymember Berman.
Thank you, Chair Pellerin. I want to thank Senator Umberg for bringing this before. Every so often, this is my 9th year in the Assembly, and every couple of years a bill gets introduced, and I think, dang, I wish I introduced that bill myself. And this is absolutely one of those, and I appreciate you adding me on as a principal co-author to show my strong support for this effort. I know there are a bunch of folks from Palo Alto who are here today. I got my start in public service in Palo Alto back in 2012, running for the city council, and back then we had sort of informal agreement that you wouldn't raise money in more than $500 contributions, and you wouldn't spend more than $35,000 total on your campaign. That was informal. It wasn't a rule, but pretty much everybody stuck by it. And then 4 years later, when I was running for the state assembly, 6 very wealthy families in Palo Alto each spent $20,000 per family to try to influence the city council elections in Palo Alto. I mean, there's just been such an explosion in money in campaigns at the very local level, all the way up to the state and the federal level. And this won't restrict anybody's ability to do that, but it gives cities the chance to decide whether or not they want to create a system to allow for an opportunity for more grassroots candidates to really kind of catch fire and get the support that they need to run credible campaigns. And I think that that's a really interesting kind of policy space. I know this isn't prescriptive. It doesn't say exactly, what the programs have to look like. It leaves it up to the local governments to decide what they want to do. But I think this is an area that we all should focus more on to research what other jurisdictions are doing in other parts of the country and adopt best practices in California, because I think the explosion of money in politics has really made it harder for candidates who aren't necessarily a part of the establishment, or candidates who don't have a lot of personal wealth to run credible competitive campaigns and be successful. And this levels that playing field a little bit, or gives the potential to level that playing field a little bit. And it is true. It was mentioned by an opposition witness that we have a 3/4 majority of Democrats in the California legislature. It's important to note that we have that based on one of the fairest election systems in the country, right? Unlike states like Texas and Florida that have rampant gerrymandering, where the winner and loser of the race before the election ever happens. In California, we have an independent redistricting commission where Republicans have as much say as Democrats do. And we have a top 2 primary system that leads to some of the most competitive races in the country and gives the opportunity for any candidate, Republican or Democrat, the chance to have a real say, as opposed to the politicians picking and choosing the winners by drawing the districts and the boundaries that they want. So, there's an opportunity for my colleagues in the other party to win races. I'd argue that you got to get voters to vote for you. And Democrats have gotten 3/4 of districts in the Assembly and 3/4 of districts in the Senate to vote for Democrats. But it's a fair system. Everybody's got a chance. And I think this bill will make it an even more fair system. So happy to support the bill today. Thanks.
Assemblymember Tongipa.
Yes, thank you. I just have a very simple, plain English question. So this bill gives the option to the voter to allow taxpayer-funded dollars to fund campaigns.
So what this bill does is it puts it on the ballot. And if the majority of Californians believe that cities should be able to establish their own form of public financing, they can do so. Whether it's taxpayer dollars, whether it's donations that are matched by other donations, there's a whole bunch of different modalities to how you might have different financing options.
So 1988, it was on the ballot. In 2010, it was on the ballot. And now in this time where I think a lot of people feel that there's fiscal irregularities, the LAO reports that we're going to have deficits all the way up until 2028. They've answered questions that we couldn't even vote on the same budget that we recently voted this week in 3 years, simply because we won't have the rainy day fund available to us, with the top 10 cities all being in massive deficits. Do you think this is something that in this time right now, voters are going to say that we would like taxpayer-funded dollars to go towards campaigns?
Well, we're going to find out. I think we're going to find out, should we be successful in putting it on the ballot, that we're going to find out where the majority of Californians, one, support it, and then two, we're going to return local control to financing campaigns. So if the city councils within your district, Assembly member, they don't like it, or if the voters within those cities don't like it, they don't have to enact it. It's simply local control.
With the over 400 charter cities in California, how come only 5 do it?
Well, I'm not an expert on those 5 cities or the other 300 some odd cities. That's illustrative of local control. If a city doesn't want to enact anything, they don't have to enact anything.
Okay, thank you.
Assemblymember Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Occasionally...
Robin Umberg.
Another supporter calling in.
That's presumptive. So,
occasionally, big money in politics actually buys legislation, but far more often, big money in politics is blocking legislation, and we see that over and over again. And that's why I've been a strong supporter of this. And Mr. Lang came down and visited in Ventura County as we tried to do public financing in Ventura County 20 years ago. So I applaud the efforts of the senator for continuing this effort to try to enable more places to have public financing. But one of the things I think is important for us to point out is that in the places that have engaged in public financing, they have had significant breakthroughs in legislation that was being blocked by big money, that was always making sure that the big money candidate was winning. And when public financing came in, suddenly you had candidates that were able to be competitive enough to be able to break that logjam. And so we can't measure how much damage is being done in America by the blocking of good legislation from big money. So I strongly support this, and I'd respectfully ask to be a co-author of this legislation as it moves forward, and I'd like to move the bill.
Thank you. We have a motion, and do we have a second? Was that second by Assemblymember Stephanie? And any other comments from the dais? Questions? Assemblymember Macedo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Reading through this, I read it through multiple times just so I would understand it. And I have some very serious concerns. There are parts of it that I actually agree with when it comes to money from foreign nations and things like that. But I can tell you as a candidate, I received a $12.50 contribution, and I could tell you the name of that person. I can tell you I still talk to that person when they feel a certain type of way about things that are going to impact our district, the same way I talk to somebody who wrote me a max out check. Why is that? Because I know that $12.50 to that person meant more probably than the person who wrote me a $5,000 check without thinking twice. And when I talked to that person of why they gave me $12.50, it was that they didn't have a lot of money, but they wanted me to know and the public to know in my reporting that they supported my campaign and my foundation and what I valued. They supported my values. I also come from an area of California that is very, it's interesting because I actually come from a relatively neutral district, equal to Republicans and Democrats. So it'd be interesting to see how things like this would be funded. But my main question is, what would be the total cost of implementing a public financing or public campaign financing across California first? And then secondly, what would be the average cost at the local level of implementing something like this?
So because there is no specific modality, and in fact, if there's no city that decides to enact it, then the cost is zero. So it depends on how many cities, if any, decide that they want to have public financing. But to your point, Assemblymember Macedo, that person who donated $12.50 to your campaign, who you remember, this empowers them. This actually increases their voice. So to the extent that you're responsive, and I'm glad you are responsive to that very small donor, this basically increases their power exponentially. And so that's the whole purpose of allowing cities to decide whether they want to increase the power of those $12.50 voters or not.
So that actually takes me to my final question, and then I'm going to jump back up. If I were to ask that person if their money was going to a candidate or to a cause that had a very, very different platform than I did, they actually wanted to raise taxes, this other candidate. That's what their money was going to. Their taxpayer dollars is going to a candidate that wants to raise taxes, and they disagree with that. How is that fundamentally fair to that person?
Right. So this doesn't require that taxpayer dollars necessarily go to any particular person. It doesn't necessarily require that there be a match. It is up to the local city to decide how they want to implement it and if they want to implement it. So to that $12.50 voter, to the extent that their city says no, there's no concern. To the extent that they support, for example, having some sort of a match, then they have a voice through their city council to either exercise that voice and adopt it or to reject it.
Okay, it's perfect. You're leading to my third and final question, which is then what oversight mechanisms are going to be in place to prevent? Because, listen, I would love to believe that every city council member in every city in California is doing the right thing. I really would love to believe that. But let's just say everybody has a bad day. What mechanisms are in place to make sure that if this is being spent on frivolous campaigns or candidates who maybe aren't as serious, what mechanism is there then for us who are voting on this and empowering them? Granted, we are giving local control, but we're empowering them to do this to make sure that this isn't going to happen.
So again, that's up to local entity to decide that. And of course, there is oversight. I was a federal prosecutor back in the day and actually prosecuted corruption cases. So to the extent that there's a federal Department of Justice that cares about political corruption, that provides some sort of oversight. Same thing with the California Attorney General, same thing with the district attorney, same thing with city attorneys. So any city who enacts any sort of public financing or any financing mechanism, it's up to that city to go ahead and provide some sort of oversight. If they don't, then the oversight of the district attorney, the attorney general, and to the extent the Department of Justice still cares about public corruption, they provide oversight.
I think that's just far too broad, if I'm being honest. There's not enough guardrails in place that if this does proceed forward, I really hope that if we're going to hand over this unbridled power, that it comes with some guardrails. Because one thing that we see happen is we pass legislation out of Sacramento, we kind of see its way out of the door, and then we're not checking back up on it. I would really urge more guardrails in place for something like this. I don't support this. I'd love to sit down and talk with you, so maybe I can understand this better, but I just don't agree with taxpayer dollars going to campaigns. So I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to support today, but look forward to chatting with you about it.
And so, if I might respond, Madam Chair, is that we're open. If there's some sort of guardrail that you might propose, we're open to that. We're open to making sure that whatever mechanism is adopted is done so with the public's interest in mind, to make sure that there are no aberrations that might, for example, skew the process. Just as a side note, to the extent that folks believe that this is a partisan issue, Arizona had the most progressive public financing mechanism in the country. And in the Arizona model, I believe that a majority of Republicans were elected. Certainly to statewide office, there were Republicans elected to statewide office. Unfortunately, the United States Supreme Court basically said that their public financing modality, which actually matched independent expenditures, was unconstitutional. And so thus it doesn't exist anymore. But to the extent that whatever mechanism is in place benefits one party, that is to be determined by the voters themselves as to whether or not there's a benefit to one party or one candidate.
Thank you. Assemblymember Stephanie? Okay. I saw two hands over there, and now I don't know.
Sure.
Assemblymember Salate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the author for bringing this. Actually, this is an interesting discussion. Just for a fun fact, I started elected office at the age of 23 years old. I'm 44 now. So 22 years ago, I was running for office at the age of 22 in 2003. And it was like that at 23. And I think the most I raised that year total was $10,000 as a young school board member candidate. Obviously, not having a big war chest or a big network of friends, but those professors and friends that knew me and high school teachers to my local school board was an interesting time. Obviously, things have progressed, and I've been able to enhance my network and folks that I know. And this is my 7th time being elected to office. I then ran for city council, and the state had the $5,500 at the time max per contribution. We, the city of Linwood, we actually changed it to $3,000 because we thought $3,000 was a little better than $5,500, right? Someone could argue that's still too much, but that's better than $5,500 because, as one of your witnesses and I will have further discussions on other bills and other ideas that we have. We're so great at legislators at passing laws, but we don't do it for ourselves. We do it for our local governments, but we don't really do it for ourselves. But that's a to be continued conversation. I will be supporting, of course, this today. But it's just I wanted at that fun fact of like when I started to now, and then again the fact that I was able to vote on casting a lower amount of local government at a local city council. We are a general law city. We're not a charter city, Linwood, but we were able to change that to change the dynamic and give other folks opportunity to do a max per year contribution. And I say that because, as a young elected official, I was part of a network called the YEO, Young Elected Official Network. And that's one of the things we all struggled with. How do we, folks that are younger, have a voice, right? Because, we can't compete with that retired person that has a different network. And for us, I have to have still work and then still serve in local public office as a part-time job, because it's not a full-time job. How do we balance that? So I think this discussion, I've heard it for many years, and it's just now being a new legislator, it's interesting to see that it could be a possibility and give the California voters, especially in a time where our democracy is at stake. And I think that's the voices that I heard today with the people here today. And so I think let the public decide, and hopefully I would hope that local government would do the right thing. I am really intrigued by the member from Tulare to see what those things that she's interested in learning. I'm interested to discuss that because I also believe there's no cookie cutter approach to anything, right? And that every city, every government, every county is different. So I am intrigued by her question, and I'm looking forward to that discussion as well. But for today, I look forward to moving this forward, and I would also like to be a co-author. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to take a moment to point out your number one fan in the room who's here today.
Thank you for that.
And that is your father, who's here with us. So we just want to welcome you. And now, Assemblymember Stephanie.
Thank you, Chair Pellerin, and thank you to Senator Umberg for bringing this forward. I wasn't going to speak, but I've benefited from public financing. I was on the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco, and in 2018, when I ran, I ran against a very well-funded opponent who spent $1.2 million of his own money. I raised $484,000. I was still able to win because I was known in the neighborhood, and I was someone who worked in the community for a long time. But that public financing, it wasn't easy. It wasn't just I was given money and I was just talking to my chief of staff. And it was definitely in the way that it happens in San Francisco, it's proportional to donations with a cap. And we had to submit proof of each individual donor, proof that they live in SF. It was then audited. And my campaign did not get a check until those guardrails and those measures were accomplished. And, there were times when there was just no way to make certain we would even have that money because we didn't know whether or not we didn't know how much we would get based on whether or not we were able to prove someone lived at the moment in time. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that there are guardrails. So I see what you're saying, our assembly member from Tulare, but with San Francisco and the way that we had to prove every single donation, there are guardrails in place. It's not just like they give money, and it's not just like they give money to any campaign. And also this idea that it's going to determine the makeup of a board, whether or not it's progressive or conservative or moderate. In San Francisco, I don't think public financing really, it helps those who are being outfunded by people who have their own money or people that are going to donate in large amounts. And it really helps the individual that has done the work, who's been in the community, who deserves a position on that board of supervisors. And, when I ran in 2022, no one ran against me, so I didn't need public financing. But it's something that I see is so valuable to those that are doing the work, that deserve to be in places where they have influence, and they might not have it if people can just write their own tickets to, and I'm very grateful for it. So I felt compelled to speak up because in San Francisco, they make it very hard to get it, is my whole point. And I think that's important to know because I see your concerns. You just don't want, public tax dollars going just anyone for any cause, but you really have to, and the way that we do it is you have to, there are guardrails in place to make sure they're just not giving money away. So anyway, thank you for bringing this forward. I will be supporting it.
And we're going back to Assemblymember Tongapa.
Just one more question, and I didn't know if you answered this prior to me getting. So it sounds like a lot, and especially at the city levels, those are majority nonpartisan seats. Would this on the ballot measure open it up towards partisan seats too, including the Assembly and the Senate?
Well, it doesn't apply to legislative races, first of all. And secondly, it's really up to the local city. If they want to put a D or an R behind someone's name, I believe they can do so. I can ask the experts here. But that's up to the local city.
Right, I was just trying to provide clarity on that. I just didn't know, because majority of our local electeds are nonpartisan seats. They don't have a registration on their ballot on that one. I just didn't know if this truly would expand it towards.
This doesn't expand it nor contract it.
30 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we're back now to Assemblymember Bennett.
I just hopefully in terms of the close, but we oftentimes have people saying we want to have local control, except when they don't want to have locals do something that they don't want to do. This bill only does one thing. It gives the locals the option to do something. 5 charter cities have made this decision to do this because the law allowed them to do this. That's local control. And we don't know whether there are 5 general fund cities that are willing to do this, because right now we have blocked them at the legislative level, at the state. We've blocked the local government from saying, we think we can do it, we think we can do it right, and we think our citizens support it. Let's see if that can happen. Seems hard to see why someone would argue against giving somebody, the locals, the control to make that decision about how they handle this particular issue. Thank you.
Any other comments from members or questions from the dais? Seeing none, Senator, you may close.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair and members. I appreciate the robust discussion. I'm particularly inspired by the army of folks that have come to see your government in action. I don't know if there's anybody left in Santa Rosa right now, but I'm going to let Senator McGuire know that 50% of his district is actually here in the Capitol. The concerns that are raised are legitimate concerns. Again, to Assemblymember Bennett's point and the other points that are made, that this is simply allowing localities to make their own decision. This is self-determination to the extent that there are abuses. We are open to any sort of guardrail in the initiative, which again has to be approved by the voters and then again approved by the locality should they decide to implement some alternative form of financing campaigns. And with that, I urge and I vote.
Thank you. Public financing programs are a promising tool for empowering voters. In California, however, public financing programs are banned in all jurisdictions except for those charter cities due to that 37-year-old ballot measure that was largely invalidated by the courts. So this bill simply gives voters the ability to decide whether they want to allow public campaign financing programs and sets important conditions for any such programs that are created. So I will be recommending support of this bill, and I'd be honored to be added as a principal co-author. With that, Secretary, please call the roll.
On SB 42 by Umberg, the motion is do pass and be re-referred to the Committee on Appropriations. Pellerin?
Aye.
Pellerin, aye. Macedo? No. Macedo, no. Bennett?
Aye.
Bennett, aye. Berman?
Aye.
Berman, aye. Salache?
Aye.
Salache, aye. Stephanie? Aye. Stephanie, aye. Tangipa?
No.
Tangipa, no.
That bill is out 5-2. Thank you so much. And